It is time, friends, for the first of some very special episodes of Colette and Matt Have Entered the Chat. I am Matt Silverman, joined, of course, by my friend, colleague, and co-host, Colette Bennett.
I always feel so special when I get here and you introduce me. I'm like, oh, fancy.
It's very formal here. It's very fancy.
Can I just hire someone to like follow me around and be like, hello?
Because
this is the excellent Colette Bennett. I'd be like, wow, neat.
Because like you hop on a Zoom call for work and no one is there to be like, and now presenting participant number 7 of this call. Like you just don't get that in real life, and that's why you make podcasts.
Yeah.
For the special treatment.
Yeah.
What is going on with you?
Well, truthfully, I've mostly kind of been agonizing about how to approach these episodes because it seems like a very simple concept, which I don't want to spoil unless it's okay for me to go ahead and say what it is.
No, we are here. It has begun. Perhaps the fine folks listening have read the description of this episode, but we've been wanting to do this for a little while now, and it has been challenging to get it in gear for a variety of reasons that I'm eager to explore. So tell the fine people what the heck we are doing here.
Well, I think it's been a few months now that since Matt approached me and he said, hey, yeah, because it was last year when you first had this idea. You said, I've got this idea that would be really fun for us to do like a top 5 games of all time series and break it up into episodes. So in each episode, like for instance, today's will be us both talking about number 5 on our list and why it's there. And when we say best games of all time, we definitely don't want that to be any kind of like average mean, like, a Metacritic style. For us, it's our best games of all time, quite specifically, because, I think personal opinions of a person's game of all time, or 5 games of all time for that matter, really cast a lot of really cool light on what type of person that is, what type of gamer that is, what type of entertainment consumer that is. And so, it's personally for me a thing that I love talking to people about. I don't often ask it because I feel like what's your favorite game of all time is like a really hard question. I tend to prefer to be like, hey, what's your favorite game of, this console or this generation? But I do think it's when you really got to get down to the nitty gritty and think about it. Gosh, like it's hard, right? Like I'm staring at my list and I'm like still not sure. I'm like, should I move this to number 2? Should this really be number 5? Like all of these are so important. How do I choose to rank one as low, quote unquote, as number 5?
But aren't you jealous of people who you're like, what's your favorite movie? Oh, it's Back to the Future. Like I watch it every day. Like
literally never. Never.
What's your favorite game? Madden. Like the people who are just like, yeah, I know. I don't need to think about or categorize or compare. I don't need to do like comparative literature about an art form. I just like this thing and it's my number one thing. Like that is.
Yeah. Like, a person who, for instance, like you were saying, like, a person who's passionately played Halo since the get-go and that's just their jam above all other jams. It's like, wow. Like numbering these in importance is really for me quite difficult.
How do you feel? I'm very particular about the word choice around how we would frame a concept like this, and so best is a word, but I'm also interested in like. I like the word favorite because what I will say for my list anyway, I'll only speak for myself, is like some of the games on my list are in my opinion not the best games I've ever played. They are not the best. Some of them are not the best story or mechanics but they still are on my list because they are my personal favorite for #reasons. And so what do you think about best versus favorite versus whatever?
What about like most meaningful?
Yeah.
Or I mean, for me, right? Like when I look at my list, I'm like, these are the games that have resonated for decades.
Yes. Yes. That is the correct like phrase and meaning. But is most meaningful a good headline, a good title? Not that this is all about like, we're not trying to clickbait anyone, but like,
yeah, that's
just
hard.
thinking aloud.
That's really hard, I think. I mean, I know for myself, I would click that headline because I'm interested in what has meaning to people and what kind of, like for instance, my games, they're not just games that have been like, wow, those have offered years and years of entertainment to me. Because if it was, it would be stuff like Diablo series. And, that game is, spoiler, not on my list. Because for me, the games that I thought of were the games that have maybe I've returned to, but also have made me think, and they've made me feel, and they've had impacts on me that, decades down the line, I'm still looking back at those impressions and kind of reflecting on them and thinking about them, and maybe sometimes even coming to, new awarenesses about them. Like, so, like for me, there's a lot of sentiment, I guess, involved in my list.
Completely agree. Some of our most played games by hours spent are not on our lists. And that is interesting and important for this conversation. And we should also say briefly, we do not know each other's lists. We know we have done 40 plus episodes talking about our preferences and our enjoyments and our favorites and our ratings and reviews of various things. But so I think we each probably suspect some things that are on each other's list, but we have not shared each other's list. So every episode we're going to reveal in reverse chronological order. And this is something of a stack rank. You were alluding to yesterday, 2 minutes ago, which is yesterday. That's how I conceive time. We are saying that number 5 is a big important game, but number 1 is going to be number 1 when we get there for 4 episodes from now. You know what I mean?
Definitely. So stay in the moment.
Stay in the moment. Is there anything else to say about what we are about to embark on, or shall we get going on number 5?
I think we should get going on number 5.
It's here. We're doing it. All right. I'm going to yield the floor to you.
Oh, I knew you were going to do it.
Do you want to go first? What do you think?
No, it's okay. I can go first. I'm just, to be honest, I'm still kind of staring at this list because it's so hard. But I think I think weirdly, I think that despite the temptation to put number 5 at number 1 and vice versa, I think I'm at least at my number 5, probably.
Oh, that's very interesting. Yeah. So we're gonna have a big reveal here. We're not gonna give anything away, but I think it's so interesting that you are struggling to flip-flop. Is 5 number 1 or is 1 number 5? Because like I could see, is number 2 the best or is number 1 but like flip-flopping from both ends of the scale, that's really an interesting tease, I guess.
Yeah. I would.
And I'm eager to know why that is when you reveal. What else do you need to say before no hints, no spoilers, but like anything else you want to say before we do it?
No, just do it, and then I'll start explaining about my thoughts and feelings why.
All right. Everyone, this is Colette Bennett's 5th most favorite important game to her of all time. She can't even say it.
I thought it was supposed to go da 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 da, but that's after I say it.
That's after.
Sorry. The Legend of Zelda for NES. Can I tell you that once again I feel like very important.
Because of the music.
So now that I've said it, I'm pretty sure that you know why I was flipping between 1 and 5, but I'll say it for the audience who maybe doesn't know. So we've talked about, in fact, we've dedicated, I think, a whole show to my feelings about The Legend of Zelda for the NES. And I think when you're making this type of list, it's really easy to let nostalgia like pull you.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really easy for me to cycle backwards and remember like an 8-year-old me with the feel of that rectangular, boxy, sometimes pokey controller in my hands, discovering that world. And I didn't want to let that emotion necessarily be like the determining factor of my number one. It could be. And if it was, I don't think there'd be anything wrong with that. But for me personally, I was like, okay, was it my formative gaming experience, the one that had the biggest long-lasting impact on me in that time period? Sure. But was it the one that had the deepest impact on me? No. It had a certain type of impact on me, sure. But like, I would say that the storytelling of The Legend of Zelda, the first Legend of Zelda, is very light at best. Like you're in this world, you don't, really know why you're there. This old guy's like, here's a sword. You're like, okay. I do. In fact, one thing I love about it so much is that it really has no hand holding at all. It's just like, here, figure this shit out, just whatever, and I love that about it. But as a storyteller myself, I feel like typically, like today, for instance, was I to play a game like that, it would almost be like a novelty because storytelling has changed so much and we have so many better tools to do so than we had in that time period. So when I reflect back, I'm kind of like, okay, where does this really belong on that list? I can't believe that it's on the bottom of the list.
Right?
It's weird, but for me, right? I think the way my list ended up ordering itself is that the games that touched my heart and left me thinking and reflecting and processing for the longest amount of time probably got higher on the list, and like for me, this game set a standard, but then the standard was later exceeded by other things.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Yeah. So even though it's a big comfort to me to go back and play it, and it has so much nostalgia and so much meaning in a certain type of way, as I evolved as a storyteller and also a consumer of stories, I found myself being blown away by different types of storytelling and deeper storytelling. But this list would be wrong without this game on it for me, for reasons that and our listenership also knows, So yeah, I think actually the longer I look at the list, the more I feel pretty confident that this is in the right place on the list.
A historically important game doesn't necessarily mean that it's the best game,
right?
Or that as you said, that other games clearly supersede it. That said, however, asterisk, in this particular case, as we have discussed at length, The Legend of Zelda holds the fuck up, and its minimal storytelling and open worldness and emergent world building, like, is still really good.
It really is.
So like there are historically important games that do not hold up but could still be on this list, but this game both holds up and is so important to you. It ticks every box that belongs here. So yeah, I was excited to learn where this was going to be because I knew it had to be.
You knew it was going to be in there.
It had to be. Yeah.
Well, let me just say, it is, I think, kind of a bit delightful that I do a podcast with a friend who can be like, I know it's going to be in there.
Yeah.
You would hope over nearly 50 episodes, we would figure those things out by now. Like, I'm pretty sure I know several of yours.
Yeah. Well, the fun for us is going to be where are the ones that we know for sure? Where will they land? OMG, the one I thought for sure is not there, and or what are the ones that we never saw coming? And that's going to be the fun of these next 5 episodes.
Definitely. Yes. I absolutely agree with that. So, I guess it's, it's funny. I wasn't sure like how much I was going to have to say about it, and I don't want to be repetitive over other episodes we've done, but, I definitely want to echo that for me personally, there was a feeling of what I can only kind of describe as like magical exploration.
Yes.
About that world.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it was and still is, even though I see it through the eyes of the child that first saw it, quite magical, quite, like in that time period for me, the places that you explored in that world were really real. I didn't see it in my mind's eye in a 3D kind of way, but I guess my imagination kind of filled it in.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that, for me, like finding the graveyard, for instance, was like, I can't kill these ghosts.
This place is different,
right?
Or like things are not working here.
Yeah, getting high up into the mountains area of it, and being like, wow, this really for me imparts a really powerful feeling actually of like, like I'm up in a deserted place. It could be dangerous up here. I have to be really careful. And it's full of those red knights and blue knights. I forget what they're called at the moment.
Super dangerous. I mean, I've got a handle on this area and I know where to go. But then you peek over into this area and it's like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
I am not prepared for this at all. I'm getting my ass kicked.
Yeah.
That's what's this about?
But like, it's interesting, right? It's like, how many games do you play where they actually impart kind of a feeling of emotion that feels like you're really there? And if I really reflect back on little moments like that, that's what I think of. I'm like, oh, right. Like that kind of felt a bit like, surely a small percentage of what it would feel like to really be trapped in the mountains with dark nuts. That's what they're called. But, at least like a little flicker, right? A moment of like, wow, whoa, or like there's one section you go into where there's two little mountainous, I don't even know what to call it. There's two little mountains in front of you. And then like the whole little screen is just crammed with both red and blue dark nuts and they shoot arrows. And you're like, ah, like
how could I ever?
Shit. But at the same time, like the other side of where they are, you've never been.
Yes.
And you're like, fuck, I got to get over there. Like, I got to know what's over there. And so you're like, how do I figure this out? And I just kind of remember like my brain like working around that, and like today, my brain has probably worked over hundreds of those, right? Hundreds of those little spaces. Oh, I got to get past those guys, blah, blah, blah.
So, right. That's the scenario structure. This game does open world exploration better than some 2022 open world exploration games. You know what I mean? Like that's how ahead of its time it was.
Yeah.
And it is.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree with that. Like it, I've often gone back to it and been like, why have I played this so many times and yet I continue picking this game up? Like, is it that feeling you get when like you pick up Punch Out and like, you beat, whatever, Bald Bull or King Hippo or, someone that when you beat them, you're like, ha, I can still do the thing. Like, it's really not that. It's like, for some reason, I don't really ever get tired of exploring that space. So maybe that really is a huge like indicator of what a powerful effect it really had,
But is the magic not that the magic is clearly not gone for you, and that's wonderful and extraordinary, but like when you arrive at the graveyard, like the graveyard's there, so you're not getting that like moment the same way you did as a kid. What do you think about that? Or what's different, or why do you still go there?
Well, bear with me where I'm about to go, but like most of us have had a first love, right? A person, and I think the first love that you have as a person unless they like murdered your cat or something horrible like that. You probably have fond memories of that, right? And I mean, probably a lot of it was imperfect. For me, my first love was definitely imperfect and definitely had some really messed up things in it. But that's not really what I remember now. What I really remember were the really beautiful parts, and there were a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess maybe what it is that you're right. If I return to it today, I don't feel the exact same feeling of coming across that graveyard for the first time, but maybe because of the impact it had, that fondness is what's left,
Yeah, that's right.
So surely as a kid, I had moments of terrible frustration. Like I'm talking about, the mountains with the dark nuts, like it was like some fabulous romantic moment when in reality it was like, fuck,
Dead again.
Yeah. And like, I can't tell you how many times, I think it was probably like the 5th dungeon or something. There's like the first time you come across a room that's just all blue dark nuts and you're like, totally. God damn it. And you can't, there's an underground like passage you need to get to, but you have to kill them all first.
Yes.
And I remember really well being like so frustrated and dying so many times and being like, so of course but that's not the memory that comes up when I think about it.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the big memory. The big memory is positive, right?
You are, just as an aside, you are reminding me that like, this game has real challenge, real.
It does.
Not arcade is the wrong word, but like you need to become skilled at the sword and the boomerang, etc. to get to progress.
You definitely do, in my opinion. I mean, I do think it gets significantly harder. I personally find that I still struggle sometimes when I'm playing Death Mountain, the last level.
Sure.
It is, in my opinion, still pretty challenging. And of course, having this conversation is making me want to literally just drop my work and go play it because I can't talk about the game without desperately wanting to go play the game.
Yeah. And when did you play it? When did you play it through last? Are we talking months or has it been a while?
To the end, it's been quite a while. The last time I played it at all was when I got the, oh my gosh, the Game & Watch edition of it, where it's like it's literally dedicated to just that, and my ass was like, "Here's my $50," and like it's not comfortable to play at all. Like if you've ever held a Game & Watch, that is like not a particularly comfortable to hold.
It's a very stupid thing, and yet it's so cute and cool. And here's my $50. I totally get it.
It is. It's like, wait. What? Why did I just give someone $50 for this? And then I'm like, because
for a clock.
For a clock. But the idea that I have that beloved game and I can literally stick it in my purse and I can just be like, today I'm going out into the world and I have The Legend of Zelda in my purse on a standalone device is like too much for me to handle. Like I can't
going
like,
out
I
into
love
the
it.
World. What are you talking
about? Even if it hurt to play it, even if it hurt my hands to play it after 10 minutes, I'm still like, yay. So that's pretty funny. But yeah, the games that matter to all of us, I think, are different for so many different reasons. And how lucky is that? How cool is that, I guarantee you that even a game that you and I might think is more kind of like brutish, like Halo, like someone would have a Halo story that would be so much more meaningful and so much more resonant than you could think would come from like, oh, Halo, the game that Xbox bros play. Like someone would have a great story about that, in my opinion.
Oh, for sure. And it's not me. It's, no spoiler alert. Halo is not on my list, but like,
that was funny.
But I remember the story of Halo, for example, is really compelling, and then it revolutionized shooters. And then you always hear about the whole like, oh, I played Halo online with my friends for 600 hours, and that's how we kept in touch. Like, yeah, I get that. Mm-hmm. It became a vehicle for bonding and social experiences and shared experiences, and just bringing it back to Legend of Zelda. Like obviously, there's no online and there was no internet and whatever, inside or outside of the game. But I do have vague memories of like that the world of kids was sort of figuring out the Legend of Zelda together at the same time. So you would encounter people and you're like, did you know that if you put a bomb here, there's a cave? Like, did you know that? And you're like, whoa! And there you would be trading information. Like, there was, depending on the crowd that you rolled with, this was not a common experience, but I do have memories of like communicating secrets and receiving information from outside of the game from other people, not magazines, but like other human beings were like, oh, I know that. Whoa, did you know that? That was cool because I don't know, games were super linear and forthright in that time. And like you said, here's a game that gives you literally nothing, and the world had to figure it out together. That's pretty cool. And I like when games do that today too, you know, especially in a like an emergent or procedurally generated context. I want to go back and play this for nostalgia's sake and sort of appreciation's sake. But the idea of exploring a Minecraft cave that no one has ever seen, that I've never seen before, is a little more compelling than going back to the same graveyard that I know is there and is exactly the same. You know what I mean? There are different draws to those two things for me. And I get both of them. I understand both of them.
I wonder if Minecraft is kind of a little bit like today's Legend of Zelda.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you know, if you think about it, it's this blocky world, but it's big. I think there's a little instruction, right? I haven't played Minecraft in a really long time, so I kind of don't remember.
Almost none.
Almost none?
None. In my recollection, I think the only in the olden days there was literally none. So you'd have to like bring different materials into the grid to be like, does this combine into anything? Does this combine anything? And I think the more modern versions, which are on like mobile and handheld and Switch, like it just shows you the recipes and then shows you what you need to make them, which is like, there's just so many things to craft that it's you really do need that. But like, there's no, hey, here's the goal of Minecraft. It's just plop, do whatever you want.
So like, it's not like Zelda in like, you know, you're creating, not necessarily. I mean, I think you're discovering too, but like the creating is like another level. But like, I've always looked at Minecraft and kind of been like, like I've played it a little and I had some fun with it, but like it never had the impact for me. Mm-hmm. But it does kind of make me pause and wonder, like, I don't know, like for the young player of today, if perhaps it had a similar impact on them.
Oh, there is. I have no doubt of that. And I really love I really subscribe to the sociological discussion of Minecraft where you know, there's all this hand wringing in the world, which is a lot of it is a little silly, but it's like, kids don't play outside, they're too busy playing video games, and it's like, okay, fine, but this notion that like kids need to and should go out into the woods and just run around and play house and swing sticks and climb trees and whatever. And I think that is good. But in a modern world, if you live in a city or a suburb, and especially if you don't have the economic advantages that some people have, you don't have access to open spaces or woods or even playgrounds, which is a crime, but that's another, you know, sociological story. And so if you don't have those things, isn't it great that you can just plop into an unknown procedurally generated world with your friends and explore and do whatever you want? I can build my house over here, you can fight a zombie over there, and we are working together, or we're going into a server that has some sort of goal or like that this is the wilderness experience for modern kids. And you know, you could say, wow, isn't that sad? Or you could say, wow, that's really cool. I tend to be in the really cool camp, especially, as I said, if you don't have a backyard to play in or a, you know, a wooded area to explore. Most people don't, you know? So
yeah, it's really interesting to think about that. Like how it's interesting. I don't think before this conversation I ever would have been like, I don't think I ever would have had a moment of even thinking that Minecraft and Zelda had something in common. But now I really feel like I can see that.
Yeah, Miyamoto even has said like this game is about me like walking into a cave in the Kyoto countryside or whatever. Like as a kid, he would just be like, "What's this weird place?" And he would just like check it out in like outside in the wilderness, in the world. And he wanted to then bring that into a game where it's just like, all right, but look around. What's over here? What's over there? Whatever. Figure it out. And like again, in a world where most games were like go from left to right and then get the flag, or hit the ball here or there. Like it's truly revolutionary.
Mm-hmm.
I can't stress that enough. In and then carrying the torch forward, Minecraft also revolutionary,
right?
In its way, in that lineage. I just love this. I love this stuff. I'm so I knew it would be here for you, and I think it in the context of what's coming next for your list, which I don't know, but I'm anticipating. I think it makes sense here. Are there better? There are better games than The Legend of Zelda for NES. Full stop. Like there just are. There are refinements and improvements on what this game is, but it's still to this day just an extraordinary thing.
Yeah, agreed. Exciting. Well, I think that's about all I have to say for number 5. So I think that means that we are going to be soon moving on to yours.
Number 5 in the books for Colette. I'm not going to tease or spoil much here before I reveal my number 5, but all I will say is that I really did have similar parallel struggles to everything you said of like separating nostalgia and personal meaning and childhood meaning from really though, what is the best and most interesting, exciting, fun, emotional game for me personally, and the difference between pure nostalgia and bestness or favoriteness. And so that will be reflected here for sure as I reveal my number 5 best, most favorite game. Final Fantasy VI, also known as Final Fantasy III, if you live in North America.
Yay! Okay, I have to admit, I did not see this one coming necessarily.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this early or at all?
At all.
Interesting. Without spoiling anything else on the list, I will talk about this as an interesting outlier, because again, is it the best game? Is it the greatest RPG of all time? No, I don't think it is. But wow, this game. The reason it is here for me is because it always felt like a watershed moment in what video games are and could be. And like, as most of us did, as I know you did, we grew up playing RPGs, whether that's the Zelda games or the Square games. And I was playing most of the Final Fantasy series all the way up to this moment in time. This is 1994. Okay. And Super Nintendo is here, and this thing comes on the scene, and it is just like a shining achievement in storytelling. It's a huge cast of characters. It is a next level mechanical magic esper system that, like, when you grow up playing RPGs, it's like, hey, you've got a wizard and you've got a thief and you've got a fighter, and they've got a skill tree, and you can level them up. But here we are talking about, I should have looked this up, 15, 16 characters, all of which, most of which are not just like filler, silly tack them on characters. Like almost every single character has like an epic story arc. All of their stories are intertwined. They come together, they become separated, you follow them on their own paths. each character has their own talents and skills, which makes them compelling in combat and in story. But then on top of that, you are layering on the Esper system, which is, as you probably know, and as many listeners know, you're talking about like pairing your character with a magical being that can teach them spells as they level up. And so then you're saying, well, I'm going to marry this character with this type of magic so that they will be more useful in battle or complementary to these other characters, and balancing the systems. So this had, for me, it had everything. It had really interesting, robust mechanics combined with like just a next level epic storyline. You know, Final Fantasy II, which I guess was 4 in Japan, had a great story, but it was, you know, it was fairly linear and still stayed pretty true to the RPG formulas of its time. And then Final Fantasy VI was like, just, I don't know. I can't. It was world changing for me, and I spent so much time and emotional energy with it that I have long talked about it as like my personally favorite game. Now, in the context of this list, are there better games? Yes. Like, this is 94, and then like 1 year later, you've got Chrono Trigger. And like, I'm here to say, like, I think Chrono Trigger took what Final Fantasy VI did and then amped it up to the next level of like a blockbuster movie. You know, like, I think Chrono Trigger is a better story. I think the characters might even be more compelling. It's more, there's something about it that's more like fun and mainstream and exciting, and it's weaving together the narratives of time travel. And like, I don't know, I think Chrono Trigger is a better game than Final Fantasy VI, but Final Fantasy VI here. But for me, there's just something about the way 6 like blew the doors off of RPG storytelling that like I just like felt like I sat back in my proverbial chair in my mind and said, "Oh, okay, video games are here. Like, they are here to stay and get."
I really love that image,
world.
by the by,
right?
Of you in your chair, like, whoa.
Just like as a kid being like, whoa.
Yep.
But you know why? And because here we're talking about, this is a game that's like, we're talking about the complexities of war and power and the history of this world. Like as you probably know, like the premise of this game is that like 1,000 years ago, the world got fucked up, and oh my God, we're on the precipice of doing it again. How can we stop this calamity? Which, you know, we have seen this then 1,000 more times in more games, but there was just something about the gravity of that in a game at this time that really it just broke open the floodgates for what RPGs could be about.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I'll say here, and I'm sorry if this is like, I don't mean to flex when I say this, but my first CD player was a 5-disc changer.
Yes,
okay?
I had one too.
So you're in the club because like you and I cannot be the kind of people who can only listen to 12 tracks at a time and then be bothered to open the tray and put in another disc. We need to be shuffling and mixing, 100 tracks at a time.
That's
because what
correct.
Are we?
Yes.
So
that's correct.
So that stereo system was my first way to listen to my own music. And the first CDs that I ever owned in my life were, of course, say it with me now, the Forrest Gump soundtrack, which was a 2-disc compilation of like 60s and 70s music from the movie.
That's delightful.
And of course, definitely the 2-disc, maybe even 3 discs of Final Fantasy III which is Final Fantasy VI music, because this soundtrack just knocked my socks off.
Yeah.
It was and is unbelievable. It took the sound chip of the Super Nintendo to the next level, and it just had like a brooding ambiance and a mystery and a heroicness that previously was only like, we have the Star Wars soundtrack, we have the John Williams-ness of the world, which was only in movies, to me. And then you had video games which were mostly like beep a doop 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 doop, and then you had this thing, which was like, am I in the movie? Because this music is so good. And again, if you had to put the Chrono Trigger and Final Fantasy VI soundtrack side by side, like, there is something blockbuster movie about Chrono Trigger that I think, maybe would edge out even the Final Fantasy VI soundtrack. But to me, this soundtrack and this mood and this tone and the wholeness of this story is incomparable for its time and for its time for me in this moment of my childhood. I suppose and of course, there's a lot of psychology that's like, whatever you were doing when you were 12 years old is the thing that you will always think is the best thing ever.
Maybe.
So I'm going to couch it in like, this is this for me in my list. This is an exception to my rule of like, what are the best games that I've ever played? Yes, this is maybe not the bestest best, but it occupies a moment in time for me, and it is such an important game historically that it is, for sure, it has to exist on my list, and I'm placing it here at number 5.
So curious, you've mentioned a couple times, kind of in a roundabout way, about how meaningful the story was for you. I'm curious if, kind of like my Graveyard, if there was certain parts that really just like hit you especially hard.
Yeah. It is, we're going to spoil the story of Final Fantasy VI, which is just amazing. So if you have never played it or aspire to play it, please turn this off and here we go. But like I said, this history of like 1,000 years ago, we made a horrible mistake. But the details of that mistake have been completely lost to time. And now we live in a society where we have technology, we have a more modern world. It's, that was also very interesting to me, of like, almost every other RPG you could imagine up to this point is like a medieval world with castles and dragons and whatever. And this is a world where we have steam power.
Yes.
We have airships, we have technology, and there were airships in previous Final Fantasy games, but like, we're living in a semi-modern Renaissance-esque world, but we know that 1,000 years ago, we really fucked some shit up, but we don't know exactly why. And then it's like, uncovering this mystery is very interesting and compelling. You have a character that has amnesia, but she has some connection to this past. And then truly the other thing that I think really sets it apart for its time is like, you have an evil guy, you have your Kefka, who is a lackey, a lieutenant in this evil empire. But as you progress, you see that his like psychopathic lust for power and magic and control, it grows and is he is initially just a clown, but he becomes the big bad in a way that is like truly psychotic. And I also think it's interesting that like, in a Star Wars kind of way, you have a Darth Vader who is like, Darth Vader is the ultimate villain, the ultimate big bad. Uh-oh, plot twist. He's actually not. He's actually working for the ultimate big bad, who is the mastermind behind everything, the Emperor.
Right.
And in Final Fantasy VI, you think, oh, this Emperor is going to be a big bad dude. Nope. This psychotic lieutenant who finds out all the secrets is actually the super big bad. murders the empire or the emperor, ultimately disbands this whole psychotic, this whole imperial world, and just builds this psychotic world of magic, destroys the world, and essentially becomes a god. And now it's up to you and this like pan global team of, I don't want to say like some misfits, but also like some really important people in this world to say, we got to save this destroyed world from a god. And if you see it through, you do, and you succeed. And that arc, I guess, has probably become a bit of an anime trope over time, and maybe it always was. Maybe I wasn't aware that this was always the kind of a thing. But at the time, I felt really I found it really compelling existentially about like, we could obliterate the world, and then somehow, if we all get through that, we could rebuild it. And then it also much later made me think a lot about Japanese culture and where this game came from. And I don't know if this is part of it or connected to it in any way, but like, I can't help but think about these themes in these media and be like, yeah, like Japan was destroyed, obliterated by nuclear weapons, and then they had to rebuild it from nothing in some ways. And that is an existentially horrifying thing, full stop. And then are we talking about, is this like thousand-year-old secret of magic that is way too dangerous for humans to be in control of? Are these metaphors for nuclear technology and whatever? Like, and I don't know. I'm sure that there are smarter people than me who have written about this, but like, looking back on that historically was also very compelling to me as a teenager, I guess. So anyway, to answer your question, those are the story beats and characters that are very interesting. Also, and now that I'm thinking about it, hey, the main character of this story is a woman. That we haven't seen that a lot in leading up to 1994.
No, most certainly not.
Terra is a woman who has powers, but she's enslaved by this empire, and we as her friends all work together to figure out what her deal is, and she becomes very powerful, and and she saves the world, and that's amazing. So it broke through a lot of norms and storytelling that we just did not see up until that time, I think.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I could totally see that. I've played portions of this game. I have never finished this game. And this conversation is just making me like facepalm myself into like eternity. I'm just like, but you know what? Also, I've definitely realized that part of the games that made this big impact on us is finding them at the right time. I do think you can revisit them later, but like, I do also really see in my own list that when I found these games is sometimes just as important as finding these games in the first place. So I think I could still go back to it, right? But like you were saying, I kind of feel like Chrono Trigger did it better. Chrono Trigger was more the RPG experience I had around this time. But that said, doubt. It's like, could I go back and have, and really relish Final Fantasy VI? Like, now I might be able to, sometimes I'm able to go back and do that. But another part of me is like, I wonder if it will be quite the same if I didn't experience it in that time period, or like, at the right time, I guess is maybe a better way of putting it.
If you can forgive its long in the toothness and maybe play it on an emulator where you can sort of fast forward a little bit through the tedium of the random battles. Because
that's always really hard for me.
You have to grind in certain places to then overcome whatever's next. I don't think it's egregious, but it is. If you can skip over a little bit of that stuff, I think then you can forgive it. And I don't know what this says about the two games, but like, I played Chrono Trigger with my daughter when she was 5, probably young 5, or through that time period, and she was riveted, and like I was having conversations about time travel paradoxes with a fucking 5-year-old. Like that's how compelling that story, characters, and world was to her. And I was like, get ready, 5-year-old, 6-year-old, like now we're gonna play my favorite game of all time, Final Fantasy VI. And she literally fell asleep, like could not. She's like, what is this? I don't care about that. Who are these people? Like she just could not connect with it.
That had to have been like a sad moment as a dad.
But it wasn't because I was also like, yeah, I guess I get this, because it is a grimmer, drier, more political kind of story than Chrono Trigger was, which is like, go to this portal and now there's robots here, and go through this portal, now we're in the Stone Age. Like that's just fucking popcorn fun in the greatest, almost awesome way. So I get it. I get why I understand why Chrono Trigger is probably the more formative moment for a lot of people. Sure. And Final Fantasy VII being a more epic, exciting, formative thing for a lot of people.
Definitely. Oh God. Yeah. Okay. I'm having lots of thoughts and I don't want to go into them because I feel like they're like slightly off topic. So I'm just going to kind of put a bookmark in those for whenever I'm talking about those games, which may be in this series,
We have a little bit more time here. I'm eager to hear where will those thoughts take you? Are they about this game's place in its time? What do you think?
They're about Chrono Trigger, and that's why I was kind of like, I don't know if I want to go into that direction right now, because I feel like it more, it would be more appropriate if that game was on my list, which I will not confirm or deny right now.
I freaking love that.
And by next week, the list may have changed. So
whoa, that's really interesting. That if the discussion changes the list,
it could. I mean, it's possible. It's like when I made my original list, I was like, okay, this is really hard. But then, like, if I really, really, really dig deep down, I'm like, okay, there's some games that are just really, I just can't. Like here's a perfect example. I think it was around 2007 that I discovered the first game in what went on to become the Rhythm Heaven series, Rhythm Tengoku. Yeah. This game is fucking brilliant. I could talk about Rhythm Tengoku all day, but would it be on my list? It wouldn't, because as much as I enjoyed the art, the fantastic music, the rhythm-based puzzles that are just crack cocaine. I can't stop playing them when I play it. But as much as it made a huge impact on all those levels, I don't think that Rhythm Tengoku touched my heart. And that for me is like the measuring stick of this particular list, is that for a game to really make it onto this list, it has to have accomplished all those other things. So Hades, amazing game. Obviously a game I played for literally hundreds of hours. I'll just spoil and say it's not on this list, not on my list, because I never had a moment where Hades evoked powerful emotion in me. I just enjoyed the mechanics, the setting, the music. So like, I guess, if you were to say, let's measure these games based on those merits only, my list would probably be completely different.
So I 100% understand why you're saying that, and I think it's fantastic, and that's your measuring, like that is what this list is for. I get it, but I'm also, for my list there, I'm approaching it from like this. Here's a game that is like a full brain game. Like this is a game that unlocks big brain, like, oh my God, I never realized how deep a game could go mechanically. I don't, no characters, no story. I don't care about, like, there's no emotion connected to this game. It's just like, holy shit, this is the greatest Rubik's Cube I've ever touched. that goes on my list. For me, that goes on my list.
Sure.
It is about mechanics.
Because that's your measurement, right? Like, and this is mine is very emotional. But like, that's the other thing. It's like you can't just say, oh, let's quantify this. What are the best graphics? And of course, if you go on YouTube, there's a million videos of that, right? These are the 20 best graphics in video games of all time. It's like, well, okay, you need to make content, but like, best is relative.
I really love your YouTuber voice. Love that.
It's like a combination of like a Muppet and like, I don't know what else it is. It's a Muppet.
Hey guys, welcome back to the channel.
Be sure to subscribe.
Smash that like button.
But yeah, like, ultimately a list of a person's top 5 games or top 5 movies or whatever, I think is going to be filtered through what they are like as a person, right? And like what things are most important to them as a person. So here's a perfect example. When you and I had our Final Fantasy 12 conversation, I was like, well, if you're a person that likes more political stories, political RPG stories, this might really hit well with you. But for me, I don't. So I would be more attracted to another Final Fantasy in the series, because it was more on storytelling and relationships between characters, which is my big focus in an RPG. That's what I care about.
And yet, you and I both dropped off that game at the exact same place.
So weird.
Which leads me to ask, what do you think there will be shared games on our list?
Ooh, I didn't think about that.
Like, you came at it from your perspective of like, this game is about this for me, and I came at it of like, oh, I love this for this reason, and then we end up revealing, and maybe I think the odds of one game being at the exact same spot are probably unlikely, just statistically speaking, and maybe we don't share, but like, what if there's a game on it?
I would be really pleasantly amazed if that was the case, but I'm looking at my written list and I think that probably will not happen. I think maybe in a bigger arena, like, 10 top or whatever, maybe we would share, but not in one this small. That's my opinion. What do you think?
I think, no, I hearing what you're saying about your own list and then looking at mine, I think it's very unlikely, but only time will tell.
This is true. Well, I feel like maybe we've kind of wrapped up number 5. What do you think?
Number 5. No, it's there. If you'll permit me to just plug something here that is relevant. I don't know whether maybe we've referenced it before or it's in the show notes, but like, I have a YouTube channel with my kids and we do a lot of stuff, and sometimes we do gaming stuff. And I'm very proud of many of the videos we've done, but there is something about this one video that I did with my daughter when we finished Chrono Trigger. We did like a recap and review of the entire game. And there is just something about it that I almost like tear up sometimes when we'll like the kids are like, I want to watch our videos, and then I'll that one will come on and I'll watch it with them, and there's something, that game is so special, obviously, and then hearing her talk about it and recap it, and we are discussing it together in the video. I'm really proud of it, and if you like Chrono Trigger, and if you love Chrono Trigger as much as you and I do, it is really fun and silly and emotional because it reminds you why that game is so special, and then you're seeing it through the lens of a kid. And I'm biased because it's my kid, but so anyway, if you search YouTube for Free Dad Videos Chrono Trigger, it will be very
Can you
easy
link
to
that
find.
in the show notes as well, please? Because I haven't seen that particular one, and I'm going to watch it after this, but I'm just going to be the person to pop in and to the listenership and plug and say, like, holy shit, Free Dad Videos is so freaking good. Like, this is not just because Matt is my bud. Like, it's beautiful, amazing content that like has always made me feel kind of sparkly when I watch it.
I appreciate that. That's it.
That
We're done. Number
is
5
it.
in the books.
Now to go and agonize about number 4.
I mean, look, are we allowed to change our list? I don't think that I don't know that I will. I don't think I will, but I will be interested to know if you modify as we go.
I will tell you next week. I'm looking at it right now, and I'm feeling like there's only one that I might change. I have to keep thinking about it.
Change the order or replace?
Replace. Because when I wrote down like my scribble list, I had 6. And I was like, fuck, I can't have 6. And so I spent a lot of time staring at it, trying to figure out how to have 5. And then I finally was like, okay, I've made this, but that doesn't mean it won't be shuffled or whatever. So I guess we'll see.
Here's another concept I'll throw out at you that I was wrestling with. I wrote down like 10 to 12 that I was like, these are all the ones that are really important to me, but I know most of, half of these are not the ones. But I kind of made a list of honorable mentions of like, it was really hard to decide between for example, and this is not exactly accurate, but like I couldn't decide between Final Fantasy VI and Chrono Trigger, but here's why I chose Final Fantasy VI. Honorable mention, Chrono Trigger is amazing, and it's here, but it's not on the list. You know what I mean? So like perhaps you could make an addendum to certain items where you say,
I like that.
Here's why I did not pick this one, but shout out to this other game that was almost here.
Like that. I'm going to make a note on my list, and I will consider that as I go along, because it is.
You're making a paper list?
I did.
Oh my God. What is this? The fucking Stone Age?
Look, I still like pens and journals and shit, and I will not apologize for that.
My daughter we finally gave her the password to the iPad, like the PIN number, which is, I said, all right, here's your clue. It's the year that mommy and daddy were born. And she's like, 1920?
Wow.
And I was like,
what a troll.
Get out of here. What a troll.
Oh my God.
So there's that.
Wow. Sometimes I'm really glad that my fur kids can't talk. I mean, they talk, but they can't say words.
They can't troll you.
I'm glad that like when I come into the kitchen, I just get to hear me instead of,
you know what though?
Wow, you're old.
Cats are trolling you in different ways. They're just not linguistically
that's a very good point.
Capable.
Yeah, no, they do. They definitely do. That's 100% true. So I'll take that. All right. Well, shit. I guess until next time.
Until number 4, this will be a limited series. We're going to go in, reverse chronological order. So next Friday will be not episode 4, but our 4th favorite game. Buckle in. Get ready. And you know what? Play along with us. Be sure to hop into those show notes to get the email address and the Discord server, because everyone join in. We would like to know if you are making your personal list.
Yes.
Tell us number 5 after you hear this episode. Share with us what it is and why. But do not spoil the rest of your list. Keep it secret. Keep it close. And reveal it to us slowly as we go through this journey together.
Yes, please.
Please, for now. We're out of here. We'll talk to you next week.
Bye.
Bye.